So I didn't abandon this project. I stopped because it's too big of a project. Put it on the background because it's an alien world. I had to keep coming up with alien foliage and coming up with alien foliage means I'd have to keep coming up with different things that like people have never seen before, and that's a lot of work. So I stopped pretty much here. Well, I got the grass shader working. I got some trees. I was like, man, the trees, and they got variations, but I mean, that's one variation. Come up with another couple variations of the trees, more foliage. I want a living environment, a reactable environment. So I just put it on the back burner for a second till I had some sort of money. I need money, probably a good amount of money saved up to try to build this game. Figure out to do something faster. Then I got it running up to 60 frames per second. Mostly for the most part. So I mean, to re-render in this area, all the grass, the camera's calling it. I got it rendering by a volume, so it's everything inside the volume is rendering. Anything outside the volume, while the lighting's rendering inside the volume, the lighting's not rendering outside the volume. So I'm outside the volume now, inside the volume. So I haven't, we got errors on the, let's just see, this is an old build. That's terrain errors. It was a normal thing for a second with Unity with the terrain system that you'd have for some reason when they incorporated the new terrain system to the brushes, something with the brushes. So after I build out the terrain, that the terrain error go away. But I said I'd explain the grass shader on Patreon to people, but like that I used it. You did look at it. It took me a good amount of tries to like to pretty much do it, but I ended up figuring it out. There was I mean, you would think one way about it, but it's not that way. Let's see, put a prefab up. You see this actual triangle meshes for all the grass and the clovers I got going down. Because every time you put a square, you think you want to put a square mesh down, but it's not. I didn't use the square mesh. I used the triangle mesh because it's going to calculate the square as two triangles. So it's rendering two triangles for every you know bit of grass that you go put down. So I just put it in, I made a triangle mesh and brought it in. It's not, it's going to interpret a square as two triangles. Any plane is going to interpret it as two triangles, no matter what, because it's going to split it down from just triangulation. But so like I said, just brought in a triangle mesh. And then with the grass shader, made it in a shader graph. And I don't know if that's going to show up if I do it like that or not. I'll dock it back just in case. You would think you would use just you got UVs that are going basically X and Y on a mesh. We look like at a plane. It's mapped in the plane X and Y, U and V. So you would think that like we have like an object, the art that's moving on the object's moving within the object, but it's not. I thought it had, you think you'd have to grab the UVs and move the UVs, but there's some crazy funky way past like well, I mean, I'm not like no math wizard, and I just understand shaders pretty good, but I understand games and 3D pretty well. So I grasped the concept, and I was trying to use the UVs to move it, and it wasn't no success. And I finally found a video on the internet. I hate looking up stuff on the internet. That's part another reason why I stopped this, because like this was the earlier implementation of dots, and I didn't want to use I didn't want to keep on looking up and learning the dot scripting and all the other things and stuff to keep on. I needed to marry up my game. I got what I needed done, but like to keep learning updates and keep learning updates and keep learning updates and not putting out anything. It's a pain in the butt. But from like left to right, it's not really that complex. You got time starting over here, which is driving the motion. It's the constant, pretty much the constant driver that's driving everything. A number, the cycling through time on the x-axis, because that's what it's moving on. It's moving on the x-axis, and this is the world position of the object. And so what it's really doing is locking down. This is giving motion through gradient noise to the x position. And from the x position going left, and it's to the regular normal position. It's interpolating between those two positions, and so you're moving left, and it's going back to the regular position, moving left, and this is the work node that's in between the two. That's it's through the through the UVs, through the rotating through the panning. That's how it's rotating through. Well, I rotated, but through the rotation thing comes in for the triangle part of it. My bad. But where is it? Did I use the rotate? Yeah, I used to rotate. And no, I used it. No, I used it. No, it's all going through the no gradient noise moving left. And taking that vertex position of the X and moving it to the left, and then it's linear interpolating it and coming back to the regular position through this. But this part is where the triangle part comes in because it's not a regular square. So you had to clamp down the position of X, and this is what it's doing. But normally, the X is not going to be, since it's a triangle, like I said, this is not the part that's on, you're not going to find this on the internet. It's not what I'm not, they're saying a monkey see, monkey do situation where I'm looking up stuff, but it's I got two textures, the clover texture and the glass texture. And so right here in the middle, in the black, its positions are not moving. In the white is blending with this gradient noise. The white is blending with the black was coming up with the mode, well driving these values right here. So if you were looking at it all together, you would see the noise come through these triangle parts, going from from this corner to that corner, like, so there'd be noise going that way. These lines would be diagonal going that way. Really, pretty much what I did to get it to use the triangle, to use the, like I wanted to use two textures. And mostly that's this optimization wise. Like you want to use a lot of you want to use just like one texture. You want to try to get as many textures onto like a 4098 or 4098 by 4098 or 2048, whatever type of grid, UV grid, you want to get as many textures on there as you can. Because like that, I mean that's that comes in, I think, into the video memory part of it. But like in RAM memory, and when it comes up to really with virtual texturing and all the other stuff now, you really don't have to worry about that still. But that's still like file sizes and everything else that goes into the game and running, and then it's pulling it up into RAM and using it while whenever it's called up. But when it needs to be drawn, that texture is getting drawn up, and whatever comes along with it's getting drawn up and being pulled into memory and then being used and then reallocated. So I mean, all that goes into the effector, but that's and that's the bad part about it. This shader might not work on. This is 2020.2.1. It might not work in the next version of it or newer versions of Unity. So because there's just different things that they change whenever they make updates or things, and then that's when I get online and I'm looking and I'm searching and I'm trying to figure out what the fix is now, or I'm wanting the updates to know what I need to know what to do now in the game engine, because it's not there's things that change, even with the shader. I save it. Any change you make, you gotta save, otherwise it's not gonna go through to the shader part. But that's for a shield. But I mean, that's all. I had to even update this, it didn't work. And I mean, I don't even know if this works now, just because I don't know if I finished updating it to make it work or not. It's just things that just don't work. I guess it works. There it goes. So But with like shader instructions, I guess there's different things to change. I'm not. That's way past. Well, like I stopped making the game earlier because I didn't have the. There was a shader I was trying to make, and I looked it up, and I was like, man, there's a whole bunch. It's not just CG is a whole different total thing of madness on its own, and to try to learn it and like I said, try to learn CG. That's a whole, and then the level of math with going into C and messing with shaders. That's a whole different thing. But actual a material editor shader like this, where it's like all the math is already done. Everything is there for you to use. You just use it. You don't come up with it. So it's not but you come up with a shader, the end product, you come up with, but like all the math is there. You grab a node, utilities, properties, procedural, the math, input, but even then there's no telling that let's see over here though. Let's see, there'll be an error that'll pop up on the right or left hand side. If you're watching me, you can build shaders here too. And shader graph, and they won't. I mean, earlier versions of Unity, it'll work. Now it'll throw like these newer versions of Unity. You have to make sure that make sure for sure that there's no errors in your shaders, because sometimes there'll be an error that shows up over here on your right hand side. If there's any errors with your shader, you gotta go fix it. I mean something like you got like a float 3, like this float 3 color going to the fragment shader. It's a float 3. You can't put a float 4 in there. You can, but you won't notice you have a float 4. The actual the texture sample shader is a float 4. It gives you, which basically it gives you all with the float 4 with the shaders. I mean, you can still use, if it's a constant, it's going to be X. If it's a you got X and Y and Z, X, Y, Z, and then you got I guess W or all that stuff that goes in the coordinates goes in the colors also, which X is red, Y is the RGB, green, and Z is blue. So, and then your last channels are alpha channels. So you can still use, I mean, you don't have to use a color per se. You can use X, Y, and Z to control a color scheme. But it's, like I said, that's way past what, like, I don't know, the whole shader stuff. Just understanding and know what to build, and sometimes you build it and there's errors, and you got to figure it out. A lot of it's experimentation when you're not the person that actually what I mean, my math level was not super there, but I had a good hang of it from messing around with Unreal in college. I mean, it's the same, pretty much the same principle. It's all the same things. You got your ambient occlusion, you got your color, you got your alpha channels, emission, your normal channels. And this up here for vertex, that's for your vertex movement. That's what's driving. That's what's going into there for the motion. It's giving it coordinates between the left and right when they're interpolating through here and going into there. While this one is taking the positions and saying that all these positions are null and the white position isn't in a gradient going up. So there's more motion as you go up through the gradient. So like the bottom of the texture is not going to get as much of the motion, but the top's going to get the rest of it all. So then it comes in waves. And the amplitude of those waves is being controlled by this gradient noise. And then I'm calming it down with the subtract node, and then adding the position to the node. So this X position right here is getting added to this X position down here that's being driven by the noise is being added to the world position X of the model. And in between there, and this is the world position, I'm just remapping it. So like you got this position here is the position, this is the altered position. So the normal position right here, and this is one with the X is driving the position. And it's linear interpreting those positions by a factor of the UVs and giving it to giving those positions to the transform position or the vertex positions. So these are all for each vertices, which there's only going to be one because it's a triangle, or well, it's three. You got a triangle there, or you got vertex here, vertex here, vertex here. So these two bottom vertices are not getting, they're staying in the same position. The only one that's being moved is the top vertices of the triangle. So it's moving left and right. Left, we're going from its normal position over the left and then coming back. But to explain that to go any further more than what that is, I'm not like some super smart genius or anything. Like I say, I've been doing this since since I've been messing around with, like I thought Hypershade, I had trouble with Hypershade because I just didn't understand. It had this functionality here, but it also had a drop-down context menu over. But every time you pull up, like if you pop a blend on a model in like Maya, it brings down you got your attribute editor on the right hand side, and you can drop all your texture maps and everything in there. And it lists it out for you, but you got the same thing, Hypershade. This is the same thing, and I didn't really realize that 1 and 2 were basically the same thing. You just have a little bit more options over here to mess around with each individual parameter. So that confusion after messing with, I guess after you actually getting the engine and then messing with 3ds Max. And that shaded area, because I made the mistake of thinking that Max and Maya were the same thing. They are not. But all the shaders still basically boil down to the same thing, because they still got to go through they still got the same language. Whichever you got HLSL, whatever, and then you got lower level and higher level shader language, which is CG and all the other stuff. But now, like I said, I'm not trying to mess around with. I looked at it when I said, I'm not going to do through this and learn all this when I know that this is out there, and I had, which like I said, makes no sense to go and learn CG when I know this very well. So I'm not gonna go. As long as I got a good grasp of, how to, make and edit a shader inside the game image, and I'm happy enough for that. I'm not gonna mess with it outside the game engine ever. So like, that's not something I'm trying to mess with. But I said I explained the shader on my Patreon a couple years ago, and I never did because it just I didn't know what I was going to do with the game. I don't know, there's stuff that like teaching. I'm not trying to teach, and there's stuff that like the industry. I'm not trying to destroy the industry or do anything like that. But like I don't know. Like I said, I'm not whatever it is. I'm just keeping it like that. But I got to run at 60 frames per second, and that's with me recording right now. But without me recording, it runs 60 frames like it's nothing. But I stopped this because the next version that they put out volumetric clouds, and I was like, oh man. So I'm about to take this and put it in the next version so I can use volumetric clouds. And what I did then, I just totally came up with a totally different game but I still have this here. All I gotta do is put characters in it and populate the models. But I just started messing around with the new version, volumetric clouds, and I was like, I'll make a character, and I threw that character in there, and I threw Mr. Plumbercrack in there, and that was that Mr. Plumbercrack stuff that I was putting out and messing around with. In the meantime, in between time, but as you can see, it's rendering 60 frames per second right now with a lot of grass and a lot of stuff. I mean, that's full terrain, but I got it rendering in the volume. But without networking going on either, I turned off my network adapter because it seems like with that on, my computer slows down. So no clue. But 60 frames per second now, I'm pretty sure, and this is in DirectX 11. If I put it in DirectX 12, I will get better performance for some reason. Don't know why, but I get better performance in DirectX 12 than I do in DirectX 11. And like I said, I'm in 60 frames with all this going on using dots, and this is an older version. Well, I mean, not too much older. 2020 2.1. I don't even know if this is not. I don't think this is the LTS version of it. But like I say, you see the grass sway. You got the X position at the bottom being stuck. Left and right is going. And then the variations of the noise are driving, giving different positions from the left and right, where it's always different. It's not the same. That's driven by animation. These guys are driven by animation, and those guys. I got those guys driving I got animation going. It says 7 skin meshes. Well, there is calling. Well, visible. So the frustum's doing it. The camera frustum's doing it on it because it automatically does it, but it's still reading all the triangles. There's still a certain point, and then like I don't have no LODs going on. There's no LODs. There's single LODs on this. The trees have a single LOD. There's nothing too fancy going on with optimization to try to to bring performance. Like I said, and I'm getting without screen recording, definitely 60 frames, but it's pushing, you know, it's popping up to 60. But like I said, I'm not, like I said, it's not bragging. I just like, that's to legitimize myself. I'm not I'll look for people to work with. That's what I do. It's like, it's, I mean, it's easier with a team, but I guess with like one person alone now, it is. But like, I don't know. Thanks for checking it out.